It's a good win. There's a lot of people. It's like Woodstock, except everybody's got their clothes on.
Don't eat a damn snack.
You're like my wife when you get in space. You just get lost.
It's ahead! Short steps are better than long steps. That's the only time in your life you're going to hear short is better than long. It's ahead!
Welcome back to 614 Headsets, the weekly podcast where we say football is unconditional love. We couldn't agree more with the GOAT, Tom Brady himself. We're three high school coaches from around Columbus, Ohio that just eat, sleep, and love this game of football. You could already tell football started for us. And my voice is a little rough today, to be honest with you.
I was about to say, Kyle,
Yeah,
did you
I'm
start
sorry.
smoking cigs? You hitting
No.
Newports or something?
It's attitude week, and I think I got a little cold from the sun too, so I'm battling, but I'm in here. I'm in the arena, baby. Let's go. There it just went. How's everybody doing today? How's the weeks? What's been going on?
think
How's the
we're ready
Memorial Day
to-
weekend?
I'm ready to roll. I'm excited. I think for us, we're just ready to get football started next week. We start Monday because we're in school the rest of this week. So Monday we'll start our summer workouts, and our kids are excited. I'm excited to just get the journey started. So you already know a lot of teachers, I see them are walking around school and they're like, oh yeah, summer break. I get to kick it. And I just tell them we're just getting started.
Yeah, man. Football around the corner. My wife's getting out of school this week, so I know she's excited and super excited about this guest tonight. Really appreciate what he does and like his stuff, and I think you all will too.
Yeah, this one's a cool one. Diving as we get started here. Before, actually, one thing I wanted everybody to do, if you're listening right now, stop, pause, take out your phone, whatever you're listening to us on, subscribe, give us a rating, do something. Please continue to help us grow. We love what we're doing. We love all of you that are riding with us. And just as competitive coaches, we just want to keep doing this thing and keep building it. And really, it's really about showcasing this great game we do, the great guests that come on, and Central Ohio football. Thought of the pod, you got it today, Diamond. What do you got?
All right. So the word of the week this week is culture. And I think that word is used so much, but we all have our own cultures in life with our families, but specifically at our own programs. And whether or not they're already established or you're in the process of building it up or just starting from scratch, right, from a new program or a class that was wiped out, I think the question remains the same no matter what stage of that process you're in. And I heard it from our head coach, Bruce Ward, last season was, do your habits reflect your mission? And I think that the important point is, do your habits reflect the mission of the culture that you're starting, building, or maintaining, right? Do your habits as a coach reflect what your vision is, from what's in your program? Do they reflect it how you communicate to your players? Do they reflect it when your players see you or when they don't see you? And so I think whatever it is, whatever the scenario is, or whatever your culture is, our habits have to reflect the mission of the culture that you as a staff, you as a person in your own family, you as a specific unit coach, they have to reflect the mission of the culture that you're trying to achieve, whether on a micro scale or on a giant scale, like your whole program.
Yeah,
I think culture is I think culture right now is like a touchy word, but it's a key word. Like you have to have a great culture, but like everyone talks about culture and thinks their culture is great. And what they do in building a culture is great because everyone's different. So I think that's the unique thing. And you got to figure out what works for you and what works for your kids. And I think that can relate back to the word of change that we did last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is because your culture is always going to have to be evolving and changing as well as you as a coach and as your players change every single year. So I think for culture, it's just a touchy subject. Not a lot of people want to hear about culture that much anymore, but it's something you have to build and have a great culture to be successful as a program.
I got two things that kind of come to mind. When I went to that Roy Hall Leadership Conference, and there was obviously a lot of talk about culture and some different things, the business world and teams and things, and they worded it a different way. One of the key speakers was about the behaviors. Somebody came in and watched your program or watched your workers, what behaviors would they watch? That's your culture, right? If somebody were to outside come in, I've been thinking about that as a coach. If somebody came into our practice or what we're doing, what behaviors are they seeing? What's continuously being done? And what little things do we still have to clean up? Or I think the biggest thing sometimes there's a disconnect between what a coach wants and what's being done and getting that to match up with each other. And then like you said, Ryan, man, there's a huge backlash against tough culture, holding people accountable, holding people to standards. And this past week, you just seen a reel with Nick Saban just tearing into somebody. And they challenged him and asked him, like, why are you yelling at everybody? Or why are you so grumpy? I don't remember the gist of everything, but he paused and said, no, he's like, no, this is about we have a standard. This is about we have a standard here and pushing others to be to that. And you know how champions will rise up and how champions don't like mediocre people, that type of a thing, right? Like, so I agree with you. You hit on a really good point of how about tough championship above the line culture is almost not even acceptable nowadays. Dare we say a masculinity almost is how it has been shamed upon in a lot of different ways.
Football's even becoming, like you've said it too, Kyle, football's becoming a soft game. Like it's starting no matter what, like when you're watching the NFL, it's becoming so soft and watered down, and it's not violent or as violent as it used to be. It's still violent in many ways, but I feel like the toughness side of thing has went away. And I blame social media because everybody wants to be a pretty boy on social media and have the best pictures, have the coolest highlights, look the coolest. Instead of, I like those kids that are just nasty, that have no gloves on. One dude I remember, and I don't know if you guys remember him around from this area, Stephen Bird or whatever from Canal Winchester, the running back. Yes, he wore no gloves, no nothing. Huh?
Was he a Cincy commit?
Yeah, he was a Cincy commit. That was one dude I remember from around here. I was like, oh, this dude's got it. He has no gloves on, no ankle tape, just ready to roll.
Yeah, I tell you what, like the thing I'm the most scared about right now with our game is the 7-on-7 culture. Yeah, I have watched on and I've turned OT 7-on-7s on to some different things just to see it and to see the show it is with walking out with money and throwing it around and just the different games it is. Like I'm scared about that coming into our team cultures. So we have this 7-on-7 social media culture, OT7 battle, all that. And now we're going to have to balance that with our team culture of being about the team, we over me, not flashy, act like you've been here before, those types of things. Like I want kids to celebrate and do things, but I think there's a happy line where that meets a little bit. And I'm scared as that comes to Ohio, how that changes our great game and what's going on with it.
Yeah, you don't want to make a Showtime thing. You know what I mean? You don't want it to turn into some wannabe Netflix show where it's all just about what you're wearing and how you're acting and like you make the big time fancy catch or like the one move that doesn't apply to football, whatever it may be.
I think the 7-on-7 culture stuff, what's going on with that is a whole nother like episode that we have.
Yeah, like, seriously, we probably could.
Different segment. We can't just turn that into that. That's a whole bit. It's
big coming, subject. But my mind just went
there. Scary like, though.
These have been a couple different things I've been thinking about. So, Donnie, it's a great thought of the pod, man. I love it.
Thank you, Donnie. That's 2 money ones, Donnie.
2 for 2.
He missed practice Sunday when we talked a little bit about that. So I'm trying to make up for it. So leave that be.
Got rained out anyway.
As we did. We got half the practice in though. So stop.
Not offense.
As we get started today, want to just continue to let everybody know that this show is put on by Fundraising University. They're one of our main presenters. It's a great time. It's not too late to dominate the next year's fundraising and set new heights for your team. Fundraising University Ohio offers a variety of fundraising efforts that helps football teams run profitable, effective, and fast-paced fundraisers designed to raise the most money in the shortest amount of time to reach their fundraising goals. Fundraising University Ohio is locally owned, operated, and with their 6-step blitz system help your team maximize profits. As a current coach himself, Brent Maxwell with Fundraising University will sit down and help you pick, plan, and strategize your next fundraiser. If you're interested in Fundraising University running a fundraiser for you, contact Brent Maxwell at the letter B Maxwell at fundraising, the letter U.net or 740-501-8946. Dominate the day. Like we're
Big Brent, we're ready to go. We just got our 7-on-7 things ordered from Brent's fundraiser. Him and Fundraising You and his other boy Stevie. He was also helping us out, but we just got our kids their 7-on-7 gear. I don't know why they wanted pinstripe ones. Don't ask me. I let the kids choose it.
The kids pick pinstripes.
Buddy, wait till you see these things.
I can't wait to see a picture.
No, you're not even ready. You guys are going to be the first ones to see them. And look, I love my kids so much, but at the same time, the black with green pinstripes trying to be like they said to me the New York Yankees. They said, "Coach, you like pinstripes like the Yankees?"
It's crazy. I've never seen pinstripes on any football type stuff gear ever. So
we'll see.
Excited. Donovan, go ahead as we wrap this up in this intro here. What are we going to get into today?
Yeah, we really get to talk with somebody who I think from an O lineman and really like from a trench standpoint knows how to build a lineman and building those War Daddies. And so understanding what it takes from a high level of college football and a high level of like the knowledge of the technique and really understanding that aspect of the game, which I think is so lost upon these days. That 7-on-7 culture with the flashiness of it. And it's very refreshing. I know Ryan's probably going to hate it the whole time, but Stout and I will be drooling. So
it's going to be
Coach does defensive line stuff too.
Yeah, but he's an O lineman at heart.
Right. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to ask him some of those questions where it's the real side of football.
Yeah.
Let's roll.
What's going on, guys? We got a great episode tonight with Coach Jordan Budwig. Coach, we want to thank you really for joining. Former offensive lineman at Florida National, career leader in starts is what I saw. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then current CEO of 5-Star Studs, which, Coach, I got to say, you popped up my algorithm like 4 or 5 months ago. And I appreciate what you do because I think we had a conversation off air of there's a segment of training when it comes to O-line, D-lineman where it's not really what the position's about. It's a little bit flashy. And I think you're one of those trainers that really does a good job building kids up as people, but also with the right technique and the right way. So we want to thank you for being on, Coach. If you wouldn't mind telling us a little about your journey, how you got to where you're at now and what's keeping you going.
Yeah, Coach, I appreciate it for having me on, guys, and for all the compliments right there. Yes, born and raised in South Florida. Played my high school ball down here in Davie, Florida University School. Played at FIU, like you said. Played 6 years there. Actually had 2 years of injury in between. Played 2, sat out 2 due to injury, and then came back for the final 2. Left there with the most starts in school history and a 2-time team captain. So that was an incredible experience to finish off with Coach Butch Davis as our head coach to finish my career. Transitioned out of that. Coaching really wasn't my game plan. I went to school for business, got my degree in marketing. And the plan was to find a job in corporate America, be a small business owner, that type of thing. Got a job in corporate America for a commercial paving company. I was talking about asphalt all day. And that really wasn't filling the void. I never was without sports from the time I was 3 years old until then. Didn't really know how much you love it until it's gone. Slowly found my way back into the game through training, through 5-Star Studs. Started with my offensive line coach from high school, Daniel Luque. He started the brand when I was in high school. And kind of coming out of college, took that over with him. And very passionate about developing the youth. When I got to college, I realized how blessed I was to have an offensive line coach like Coach Luque, who was not only putting in the unpaid hours, but really giving high quality information and taking pride in the craft, right? And I found myself such ahead of the curve compared to the other offensive linemen coming out of high school when I got to college. And that was all thanks to him and his program. And going through the career I went through, I played for 2 different staffs, two totally different ways of playing offensive football. Pretty much 2 radically different coaching styles as well. So that experience combined with that foundation, I have a lot of knowledge that I'm passionate about sharing. There's not a big culture for linemen in South Florida. We're known for our skill guys and our flash, but the big guys are not taking enough pride in what they do, not consistently working on their craft enough. And I wanted to fill that void, eliminate that excuse that there wasn't somebody out there doing it and giving them that platform. So that's what's keeping me going today is working with the youth. I work with the Hialeah Hurricanes now with my partner, Gary Sanchez. Run all of my stuff out of his gym. Thankful for that at Extreme Fitness at Opelika. Doing the training. I'm a school teacher during the day, running the business, and I'm the head coach of the 12U Optimist team down there as well.
Coach, where can everybody find you? Where can they find your stuff or 5-Star Studs as we get rolling?
So our best way to find us is on our Instagram account. That's our biggest account. So it's 5_star_studs. Our website is 5starstuds.org, the number 5starstuds.org. So that'll give you everything that we do, everything I've been doing since we started up in COVID.
And that's how I found Coach Bud, man. My man with the external mic clipped to his hat up on the bill there. That's how I found him. So Ryan, man, let's get into your segment, the best segment at all for this guy.
This is it, the best segment. You offensive guys, I gotta hate this statement, the pick six, but it's the best one of them all. The pick six segment is powered by Story Rival Sports Media. Championships, friendships, and life lessons are among the most meaningful parts of the athletic competition. We are passionate about preserving them by offering the most unique highlight experience available.
That's right. And Story Rivals delivers your team's content with services designed to change the way you experience these unforgettable moments now and for a lifetime. Story Rivals now offers a complete team apparel and player shop customizable to your program. Contact us by email at info@storyrivals.com to schedule an appointment with a member of our team. Ryan, question.
Kyle, your voice sounds so bad today. It sounds like you literally smoked cigarettes all weekend.
It's going to be really rough by the end. I'm battling. All right. I'm sorry.
Man. But all right, Coach, my first question for you. This came up the other day. Like, you're a teacher too. I messed up, man. I wore an Under Armour shirt with some Nike shoes. And I'm supposed to match them. The kids were making fun of me. But my question to you is, are you an Under Armour or a Nike guy?
Nike guy for sure.
No questions asked.
No, I mean, it depends on what you're asking.
Under Armour's nice.
Well, so here's what I'll tell you. You want to get complicated. Shoes, it's going to be Nike because I'm a Jordan guy. When I'm looking for clothing, I'm more of an Under Armour guy because those shirts are extremely comfortable.
Yeah. I was going to tell you,
Nike socks suck.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wear them.
Look, Under Armour, their tops are fire. I'm not going to lie. The one hoodie I got, this white hoodie that I have of theirs is one of my favorites. And then I got another short sleeve hoodie. Under Armour fits well.
As long as it's not Adidas, man. Adidas is the enemy.
I've never wore Adidas.
Yeah, they were our sponsor in college. It was very unfortunate. They didn't really have experience making cleats for big people coming out.
Donnie looks like an Adidas kind of guy, too. Look above his head.
We got Adidas right back there.
They did not know how to make cleats for big guys.
He still wears Adidas to this day, though, Coach. I ain't going to lie.
How long do you think Donnie sat in that chair with his webcam on to make sure it said Miami above his head?
Oh, yeah. I was doing it. I was going back. Oh, yeah. It's got to get something in there.
I would do the same thing, but I just know looking at it.
Look at you behind you. You did the same exact thing, Kyle.
There's nothing behind me.
I got a couple things just all over the place for me.
Yeah.
Coach, my first question for you. So you can imagine this from like a high school coach perspective, or you can imagine this if you were a college coach. Would you rather have an offensive lineman come to you with top end athleticism or great technique? It's like, I think there's been like an age old debate of like, all right, like there's like Trent Williams in the league who, don't get me wrong, has great technique, but is like a freak athlete, or like Zach Martin, who is still a great athlete, but freakish technique. Yeah. So I've always been curious, like, how do you balance that? What's your preference, if any?
I would like a foundation of technique. If I'm coaching college football and I'm trying to win a national championship, I have confidence in my ability to teach these guys how to feel their bodies and how to do what I need them to do. Mm-hmm. So I'm always going to favor the higher ceiling. As long as they have the ability to learn and they're coachable, I'd lean that way.
Yeah. Respect.
Coach, who's the GOAT in regards to offensive line? Who in your opinion is the GOAT?
My favorite guy is Richie Incognito. When I broke his film down coming out of school, the things that guy was able to get away with on the football field was just absolutely unbelievable. Releasing to the Mike linebacker and just throwing a right hook at his jaw, just no penalty flag. So that was my GOAT coming out. And then the two college guys like Zach Martin and Quentin Nelson were just unbelievable to watch at the guard position.
Interesting. My man went interior straight through. I like
it. That's where I got to favor the interior.
He went interior. All right.
Goes right away.
All right, O-line, those guys, I think easy to beat up, easy to make fun of, easy to mess with the O-line guys. But for a defensive question for you, what's the hardest as an O-lineman, what's the hardest defensive pass rush move to defend?
The hardest defensive pass rush move to defend, for me, is speed to power, like guys that can really carry that weight, that were like truly 285, 290 plus, and moved like those 265 guys. So when they have the ability to speed and power and kind of counter back and forth to those, that to me is the best package.
Yeah. Coach, my last question. What's your favorite place you got to play at Florida National?
Favorite place
or favorite atmosphere, right? If you're like sitting like homecoming game, senior year, whatever it may be. Is there a favorite atmosphere, favorite place you got to play in?
Yeah, this is going to sound bad because the score was so atrocious. But for me, we went up to Louisville as I was a true freshman. We went up and played Teddy Bridgewater and Devontae Parker up there like week 4. Then they were rolling. We got beat like 72-0. But that stadium packed out, 100,000 plus, roaring. It feels like it's caving down on top of you out there as a true freshman. I think they had 3 guys that were projected in the first round up front. Sheldon Rankins was their 3 technique. So, yeah, it was a matchup I was excited for, despite us getting beat. I hate being a me guy as being an offensive lineman, but I didn't hate the way I played in that game. So, for me, it was the most memorable.
I respect it.
I had to change this question. There was a growing Twitter trend today about if you could only pick 3 runs as an offensive coach, which ones would they be and why? And so they had a list of power, counter, trap, buck, pin or pull, which are the same. I don't know why these
Same thing.
Inside zone, outside zone, duo or other. All right. So coach, you're the man, right? And
do I get to add split zone? Do I get to add reads? If I pick zone, do I get all of those options?
To me, if you go inside zone, you get all of those, right? Because those are just tags or different things. So your top 3 runs, coach, what are you picking?
So I'm an inside zone guy. That's the bread and butter. So we'll start there. I love being an 11 or 20 and using those guys to create similar motions in the backfield, make everything look the same, and be able to RPO, run pass out of that. The pin pull is my second favorite. So we got to be able to get the edge. Typically, you got to have really good linemen. And if you're going to be a true pin pull, you got to really major in that. So I haven't had the chance to run a ton of it as a coach, but running it as a player, it was one of my favorite schemes to run. And then I think you need a counter scheme. I go back and forth between counter and power. As a coach, I think it's easier to install counter off a trap, and your life is a whole lot easier than trying to instill like power. If you really want to run power, you really got a tight end and a fullback that can really do that job. You have a double team you can rely on. You have a center, more importantly, that can hold up on a back block. Yeah. There's just so many elements that have to go right for you to run power efficiently. I love it.
I love it too. Like for us, like it's hard because year in, year out from a high school perspective, like what you said, coach, like talk about the tight end, talk about the fullback. It's really hard to get those guys year in and year out, especially if you're at an elite level, seeing elite level defensive ends and edge players. And so we had a little bit more success switching more to a duo scheme than running power. It just was a little bit more favorable for what we get year in, year out. I'm interested in hearing you saying pin and pull. We've been battling sticking with our outside zone scheme or going pin and pull for a couple months now. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I love the outside zone. And then for me, like you can install it as outside zone and then create pin and pull actions based on the front you're seeing and the matchups that you like week to week. If you're going to install it truly as a pin pull, then you got to teach based on gap alignment. Here's your job. Here's the backer you're going to. Here's how that changes based on formation. So that tends to get a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Had to go with what's hot, baby. Let's go. Let's get into it. Episode 47, building War Daddies, baby. One of my most favorite things I'm going to get into. But as we get into this main topic, it is sponsored by First Down Playbook. First Down Playbook is the nation's leading playbook and play design software with over 35,000 professionally drawn and edible team plays with notes and full playbooks to start from. You'll be on your way to getting an edge over the competition. First Down Playbook is your entire team workflow solution. And if you use the code headsets24 or mention our show, you'll receive $100 off the already most affordable option in today's game. Head into our show notes, check out the link, head there. I've enjoyed drawing up things in there. It's becoming one of my favorite playbook software there is, maybe the favorite at this point in time with the ease of drawing. I've done everything, Visio and a lot of others. I won't mention other names on here, but it's been great. And so head over there. I'm having a blast with it. I know Coach Sayers to get into it as well. War Daddies. It is possibly one of my top 2 coaching lingo vocab talks of all time, right? I've been saying it ever since I ever started coaching. It has been one of the very first speeches I ever gave was when I was coaching high school basketball at Crestview High School. Some of those guys might remember it. I talked about what a War Daddy was, and back when they called me Sergeant Stout coaching basketball and giving explanations. War Daddy is a player with extraordinary ability and exceptional toughness, right? And a lot of times we talk about War Daddies, it's up front. And so today's all about how do you build and develop offensive and defensive linemen. And I'm going to start with the first question, Coach.
God, hold on. Were you a hooper?
I hooped a little bit, and I coached hoops in the beginning. Yeah.
Wow.
Did you know that, Donnie?
I don't think I did. I don't think you ever played basketball when we did it like a couple of years ago. Did you?
I don't play anymore because I got kids, Donnie. I can't just drop everything and leave in the morning. I'm sorry. But yes, I used to.
That was like 2 years ago. Singular kid. But it's okay. We get it. You didn't like us. I get it.
My kid's 3.5.
I'm sorry, Kyle. I'm just blown away that you played basketball. I didn't think you were a hooper.
Yeah,
I thought you were strictly O-lineman. You don't do nothing else but be
I was a better.
Typical thing. You think the old lineman doesn't have anything else in his bag, bro? That's
so I'm sorry, Coach. I'm sorry. It is what it is.
So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say a couple things right now. Yes, I was the better football player than Hooper. I won't deny that. Decent Hooper. Got a little better as I got older, a little more athletic. Donovan, when you have that first kid, your life's going to entirely change, and I can't wait. And I'm going to be here. And I'm going to be here to remind you of this moment and all these other moments to tell you how it changed. So congratulations. And then you can layer on 2 like I have, okay? But absolutely, man, let's get into this. Let's talk about how do we build the most important units, offense and defensive line. I'm going to keep Sayers intrigued today. So, Coach, what are some of your musts when it comes to developing offensive or defensive linemen? Are there core drills you work regardless of a player's ability? Because here's my thing that's very interesting. Offensive and defensive linemen, I feel like you get the full spectrum, right? You're going to get super athletic kids that can bend and move their body really well to the kids who really can't and that might struggle to get into a stance. Right? At our level, a coach might give you 15, 20 minutes to do your drills or do things like that. With what you're doing, or in your opinion, what are maybe the core things you would do every day or a consistent amount regardless of the ability level?
Yeah, so there's a couple things I do with all my guys, regardless of age and skill level. So I split up my workout into like athlete development stuff, position-specific stuff, and then technique. So the first about 25 minutes are those drills. So I start every drill with a ladder drill that builds, it has change of direction things, and then a single leg component. So if you're a lineman, you don't have the ability to have quick feet, offensive or defensive lineman, you don't have the ability to reset your base and keep your feet moving underneath you while you're in contact. You really don't have anything. So we start every session there. I usually work on the second station, another agility type drill. So for my offensive lineman, we'll do a change of direction or elevated foot speed type of drill. For my defensive lineman, we're working a lot of those upper body wiggle type of movements just to get those guys loose. A lot of those guys, especially when they're coming to me, they're really stiff. So getting them to disconnect their upper body from their lower body is important. And then every session I take a kid into, I want to get an idea of how flexible they are. So do they have any really obvious stiffnesses in some part of their body? Most of the time I found these kids are, most of the time they're trying to do what you're asking them to do. There's a couple of reasons why you're not getting the result. One, they're not willing to fight through the burning sensation in their legs when you're at what you're asking them to do. That's the toughest to overcome. That's more of the toughness thing, how bad you want to be here thing. That takes a lot of time to get that into a kid. The flexibility issues, that to me is the most important to identify, because when I was at St. Thomas, we're getting a lot of high-level kids and a lot of transfers that are coming in as high-level sophomores or high-level juniors. And even coming from bigger programs, I found that not a lot of them knew how to weightlift properly, like with proper technique. They're not squatting properly. They're coming to me with knee pain, and I go watch them in the weight room, and it's not a coincidence why, right? They're putting all their weight on their patella tendon, and that's why it's sore. I like to incorporate a lot of that into my warm-up scheme, and then make my vocabulary the same, right? So when I'm coaching the ladder drill, the warm up, I'm talking to them in the same vocabulary I'm going to reference on the field, right? So weight transfer, right? Your ability to load your weight and explode and push off and change direction. So there's some drills that I've come up with that I think make you feel that, right? A lot of young players, especially if you're a high school coach, you're getting these kids that are experiencing puberty, that their body is changing like literally every day. And a lot of these big guys don't feel themselves, right? They look big and strong, and most of the kids don't want to mess with them, but just coordination wise, they don't really understand where their body's going, how to put their body in the right positions to feel strength. So a lot of that is what I'm focusing on at the beginning. So a ton is going into it before we're hitting a pad, before we're really striking anything. We're starting with that foundation, because if you don't have that aspect of it, it doesn't matter how good of a zone step you take.
It's funny you mentioned the flexibility part. I'll never forget when I was heading into college, I walked into my college coach's meeting room, right? And he literally just the whole conversation started with like, put your hands out in front of you and squat. So he had me put my hands out in front of me and body squat. And for him, it was just totally to see what was the flexibility like. Could you bend down? Could your ankles bend? Could you keep your heels flat? It's still just this moment in my life that I just connect to and think about even today as a coach. And when you say that, the whole importance of flexibility.
You said flexibility. I think like I harp on my kids to stretch all the time, probably a lot more than people want to hear. But I know there's how important that aspect of it is. But I don't think I realized how much you get out of it from like lifting and training the right way until I got to college. Right? Like I would stretch and be like, yeah, I feel great. I'm like, I don't really look that much more flexible. I came back like a year, and like one of our coaches on staff, like, how'd you get so flexible? I'm like, I don't think I did anything different, but it's just from lifting the right way, which is sometimes harder to do, right? You're not always in their weight room or with their strength coaches or so on and so forth.
Yeah, and that's why I try to attack it from the beginning and get that foundation built in, and then teach them things they can do at home. So a lot of the things that I'm doing early in the workout are things like we use an agility ladder, we use some cones, right? We use a small little elevated box. So these are things you can easily come around. And I tell my kids all the time, even when you're getting work with me, twice a week, you're not going to see the results that you want if you're not putting in the hours at least more than half of the week, right? If you're showing up once a week, I can be the best coach in the world. You're not going to see those results.
Yeah. Coach, is there, from how you teach this technique, is there a coach out there that you really think or that you really respect in the way that they teach, or you think they exemplify like that type of technique or fundamentally mindset of offensive line play? Like I think to my coach in college, George Barnett at Miami, now he's in Iowa, he learned from Harry Easton, right? He was a GA under Harry Easton. And so he had that tradition of that technique, that understanding of offensive linemen in a way that I really respected. But is there one out there that you think exemplifies what you're talking about now?
Yeah, so my O-line coach at FIU, when I left, Coach Alan Mogridge, he's on the staff at Georgia Tech now, I believe. He was at ECU the past couple of years. But he had a different way of looking at offensive line. He really taught straining and power angles and looked at offensive line a little bit differently than I had been taught in the past. So that style, I think, is what I take my roots from. A lot of my drills are the ones that we did in college. There are a few that I've adapted and built onto, but the foundation of what he taught me is really important, on top of the foundation I got in high school from Coach Lucas. That's who I rely on as a mentor in the game for sure.
Love it.
What are some of the most common mistakes you're witnessing a lot of linemen do? Like, how do you correct it? Kids come to you, I guess maybe, I know you work with both the youth and high school, so let's tailor this more to the high school level, right? So as a high school player maybe comes to you to get better, what are some of the most common mistakes you're seeing being done?
So the most common mistakes I see is that kids don't know how to exert force and maintain the proper postures. So I'll talk to them. The way I talk about it is power angles, right? There's certain angles you need to put your body in the run game and the pass game to be able to do the job as strong as you possibly can. as anchored as you possibly can. So putting those kids in that position and making them feel it, for me, is really important. And finding unique ways to do that, I think, is really important. That's the thought process for me.
Coach, for you, with you starting, you're saying that you start at the youth levels. Where do you start at with your 12U team? What is the first thing that you attack when you get those guys in front of you?
Yeah, so a lot of habits that offensive linemen need to break are natural habits, right? We all have a tendency to want to reach and touch for something that we're going to punch, right? We all have the tendency to want to turn and face the target that's running straight at us, right? Face the guy that we're blocking. So a lot of the things that offensive linemen have to learn is really untraining the body to do what's already natural, right? And that's why I reference the postures so much, is that so much of what we do is not natural, right? You talk about an athletic position, right? We tell our kids, get an athletic position. On the balls of your feet, shoulder width apart, weight on your toes. That's the position you really grow up playing. It's hard, but for most of my high school guys especially, I'm having to explain to them that they might have been the biggest and strongest kid. They might have thought they were the best lineman. But when it comes down to what they're actually going to need to make their body do to perform at the next level, they've never really played offensive line before. They've been big and strong and ran into other people, but they've never actually done the skill. So that process of showing and explaining that to them is a difficult one, and having to untrain those natural things that your body wants to do. It's something almost you can't really control unless you can feel what your body is doing wrong and then the right way to do it. So that's why a lot of the drills incorporate bands on hips, making them squeeze and engage that core in those hips. So I try to find ways that they have to put their body in the position that I want them to be in, or they can't do the drill right.
You talk about untrained. It reminded me, my offensive line coach in college had this mindset that a lot of reasons why O linemen either don't finish like a guy to the ground or get knocked over so easily, like in pass pro. If you're on the gap side, like you're the uncover guy given the inside hand, is because that they didn't fall enough as kids, right? Like it's so natural when you're a kid to fall and get right back up and not even really think about it. And you're a big guy that didn't fall enough. So we had a drill where like you'd be fitted up on a ball in a med ball in a good position, and then you'd fall, and it was your job to get back up real quick to try to untrain that mentality of like, all right, I got to make sure I'm okay. Like I got to get up a certain way. No, it's just about getting rid of that bad habit that like probably started as a kid from not falling enough.
Donnie stayed down the whole time. Every time they did that drill,
every time.
No, stop.
It was hot out there.
It took everything in me not to take that bait, man.
You already know. I had to. I took it.
Hey, Coach Bud, man. So you've already talked a little about like your mentor, but like in today's game, who are some teams or some coaches or trainers from an offensive or defensive line standpoint that you're drawing in for inspiration from, or you just think are the ceiling of guys we can learn a lot from?
Yeah, I love watching individual players in the NFL. I'm fascinated with the position offensive line, how such a wide range of athlete is able to play the position. And talking about a Jason Kelsey to Joe Thomas, those two guys have very little in common with their body type and able to execute at the highest level. So that's what's so fascinating about the position for me, is understanding how those guys do it. So looking at individual players like that are able to overcome a lack of size, a lack of ability, and still be the best in the game. So when I listen to Jason Kelsey talk about angles of football and maintaining leverage throughout the block, like a lot of that stuff is, I almost hear like myself talking when I'm looking at that, and he's sharing a lot more of that now. When I look at scheme from a coach's perspective, I love the Shanahan system. So watching the Niners, watching the Dolphins, what they're able to create scheme-wise, for me, I think it makes it really easy for your offensive line. I think it's where the game is going because athletes up front are so exceptional on the defensive line that they're really becoming hard to keep up with. Now that they've eliminated cutting from the game, it's very hard to be an offensive lineman and do those things. So the way they're able to mix run, pass, RPO, make a lot of it look the same for the first three steps, make it feel the same for the defensive lineman. For me as a coach, when I'm looking at that, when I'm running the team, I want to make my O-linemen's lives easy, and I think they do a great job of that. And that's why they see so much production out of their quarterbacks, because their offensive line knows what they're doing every time.
Coach, you obviously know what it takes to play at a high level in college, at a high level program, but not only just that, but be ready to play early. And so I think whether or not you look at it from how do you get an offensive lineman to best prepare to go into college, or just what it takes to even be a college caliber O lineman, I think a lot of people will always focus on, make sure you're strong in the weight room so it shows on film, or try to do this, isn't that. Are there things that you think from a drill or technique standpoint that for a kid that's getting ready to go to college, right, to play offensive line or defensive line, or a kid that has the body type that could do it but needs to lock in on a few things? Is there anything out there that you think, man, I wish I could just plant this in everybody's mind, every kid's mind, of like, do this, this will help you immensely as you get ready in your journey?
Yeah, I'm thinking in my head, I don't know if I would take this advice when I was that age at 15. I didn't want to be an offensive lineman, right? I got my first varsity start at defensive line. Nobody grows up blocking each other. We grow up with the football, throwing passes in the front yard, right? We all grow up wanting to be the quarterback. And then as life goes, you get closer to that football, and all of a sudden you're a lineman, right? So it's not what everybody wants to do. And as a coach, I have to understand that. But also, we talk about my mentor, Coach Luque. He had a great way of, he's from LA, man. He's an LA kid. So he had a ton of swag, bro. So what he taught us as an offensive line, he brought that energy to the room, right? And it became cool to be a part of that offensive line room. And seeing that culture shift from where I first got there and then becoming a part of it and owning it, that's what I love so much about the room. The advice to those young guys is actually become a student of the game. Like, actually study what schemes are being done. It's really hard, and this is partly not the kid's fault, right? If you're playing at a school that runs the wing T, and that's all you've ever done, and you're not working pass block every second that you're not on that practice field, it's going to be very hard for you to step on the field and play in big time college football like today. This might be a message to some coaches out there. It might be rough for you to hear, but if your playbook looks like the 1980s, you're doing a disservice to your kids. They have adapted the way that they coach football, the way they install schemes. I think it's players and coaches. You need to be going and looking at how much football has changed. It changed so radically, even just the years that I was there, and how things were coached and how things were said and explained and the schemes that you were seeing everywhere. It's a difficult question, but you have to actually look and seek out information and learn. Like, my guys aren't surprised when they open up a college playbook. 90% of it is what they were taught. It might be called a different word, but schematically they understand what they're looking at.
Coach, what's your feelings towards the 5-on-5 offensive line stuff that's going on now and really sparked off? That's something that has been a hot topic in Ohio and all over, actually, I would say. So you train O-linemen. You obviously see that stuff going on. How do you feel about those things?
It's a hot
huge
topic
in Florida, isn't it? Isn't it huge there?
It's starting to pick up, man. It's something I wasn't a big advocate for early on, something I shied away from. Now, that was with the context. I was coaching at St. Thomas, so we're playing into December, into the state title every year. And the way that program is run, it's pretty 24/7. So I didn't love my kids being a part of it. Now that I coached in a public school last year, now that I'm more out of the game and seeing the rest of the universe going on, it's hard for me to tell my kids not to do it. It is keeping them active year round. It's giving them more opportunities to play in front of coaches. The thing that I wish we could get rid of is the celebrating of holding and pancakes that are really just tearing your buddy's ACL and celebrating that as if that's a good thing. So that's really the problem with the 5-on-5. It needs to get headgear. It's not going to survive without that. There needs to be more regulation, but it's getting more difficult for me to not embrace it. Because frankly, bro, if you don't have a league for these linemen to be a part of and to stay a part of this team, they're at home on the couch playing video games.
We were just talking about that. Stout and I are just talking about how we're going to get our guys together here soon. But I also do feel the same way. Like, Coach, I was 100% the same way. At first, I hated it. I was like, nope, we're not doing it. I don't want to do that. 2 years later, I'm like, All right, let's go. The year after that, we win the lineman challenge for the city. My coach does all the trainings and does all that stuff. So I taught myself going to a few of the actual main events. So like now you have to embrace it. So now go be a part of it. Go help out in ways that you can, just because now that's another opportunity for you to be around your kids and watch them compete as well.
See, I've never minded, like, Sayers, what you're talking about, like us getting together or multiple teams getting together and having a controlled environment where there's like legitimate high school coaches there that understand like what's at stake, or like what not to do or what to do, versus like the things you see where it's like, why am I seeing a video of one of my O linemen doing one-on-ones in a gym that looks like it's out in the middle of nowhere in February? And not even just one-on-ones, like doing it where it's like, all right, they do a rep, then they like immediately get back up to the line within 2 seconds, do it 2 or 3 more times in a row. They're tossing guys, or they're getting tossed with no pads, no helmet, no little cap on or anything, and paying for that and getting nothing out of it other than that competition that you lose your technique, that you get taught.
I don't love the hip toss fall down culture.
I hate it.
That comes out of some of those competitions.
You can't convince a parent or these kids that a training session is more valuable than these one-on-one reps. I'm just telling you.
Crazy.
Despite them having little to no value in terms of like truly getting better, I've had my DMs full of kids like, hey, I have training sessions like literally every weekend, 7 days a week I'm available. We're like, hey, coach, waiting for a camp, like waiting for something with one-on-one reps.
I'll say in my mind, I think it has a place, but to me, it is so far down the line. It's just interesting to think about all the levels we've coached at. You said the level you've coached and the level we all do. And one-on-ones is probably pretty far down on my list when it comes to the practice planning and some of the different things. And
that's one of the first things I cut out. I ain't gonna lie. If I'm trying to find some time for something else like special teams, or I need to do third down or something, we'll
sprinkle it. We'll sprinkle it, and the moment will shine through when maybe it's time to get back to a point of, hey, we need to re-emphasize winning at the point of attack and one-on-one and some technique stuff. But I'm with you, man. I think there's no better thing than the actual development and doing stuff. Coach, I appreciate you coming on, man. You've been doing great things.
It's fire. Looking at your Instagram and stuff, just scrolling through it and taking a peek at it, just seeing your patience and your level of coaching and knowledge that you have of the game and how hard you work with the youth is refreshing. You don't get a lot of guys that are like that and are doing it for all the right reasons.
I want to mention this. Coach didn't. Coach is doing everything in his area, but he also is doing some training virtually or for players who aren't in his area. And I witnessed that when I watched his stuff. If you're a player in an area, if you're a player on a wing T team and your coach doesn't know how to teach set, jam, release, sets and strikes, independent hands, some of those different things, reach out to Coach Bud at 5 Star Studs.
Coach, I'm sorry. Look, what is your favorite? Who's your favorite Florida college football team besides FIU? Who did you grow up like loving? Was it?
Guy, I can tell.
I grew up in the Orange Bowl, brother. I'm a UA guy.
I could tell.
Yeah,
I grew up in the Orange Bowl.
That was going to be a pick 6 question. I didn't ask it, but I knew it.
I was in the upper deck every Saturday.
University of Miami. There it is.
It broke my heart when they didn't offer me, brother. But it is what it is. I got to play for their best coach in history, so that works.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Coach, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on, man. We do really appreciate that. Everybody, before we log off here, make sure you do exactly what Kyle said. Get on right now. Log on to and subscribe. Log on to YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Subscribe, comment, rate, do everything you can to help us grow this thing, as we love growing this. We love to work with you guys, and we got a couple sponsors that can help you out. We're trying to just help you guys as coaches as well to make a better program and just make a better overall culture within these coaches in Ohio and all over. We got coaches that listen from multiple states, which is awesome. And it's really been a great experience traveling this with these two goofballs. This old dude.
That's right, man. We're heading to North Carolina next week, man.
Big one. But hey, Coach, thank you. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you guys, all our listeners.
Nah, boys, thank you for having me, man. It was an honor. felt like it went really fast, but I love picking your brain, love hearing about Ohio football. So we'll be in touch, I'm sure.
All right,
Absolutely.
man. We appreciate it.
All right, fellas.